And I was wondering if you could give us just a quick sketch of what's happening at the federal level in terms of food access benefits and how is that impacting California.
First, you heard in my introduction that I have 20 years of experience in policy advocacy and organizing in anti-hunger work. I like to make sure and remind people in the audience before I speak that I also, before my 20 years there, I had 20 years experiencing hunger and poverty. So when I speak about the indignity of hunger, it comes from expertise. When I talk about the poverty line, it's only as a definition of what people need to meet their basic needs. And so when I say people live below the poverty line, what I mean is they don't have enough to meet their basic needs, their basic human needs. So for the talk tonight, I think that that's really important to emphasize that when we're talking about people going without food, when we're talking about them, more people living below the poverty line as a result of some of the proposals coming out of Washington, D.C., we're really talking about our failure as a country, if we move forward with some of these proposals, to recognize their humanity. When people don't have resources to purchase food, it's not that they can go find the resources someplace else. When we cut SNAP, it doesn't mean that they'll find the money to go get food in some other way. What it means is that people will go without food. That's why when you hear that the SNAP program it has an economic impact, it's because when people receive SNAP benefits or food stamps, here in California referred to as CalFresh, they're able to purchase food that they otherwise wouldn't be able to purchase. And because they're purchasing food, a grocer has a job. Somebody packing the food at the grocery store has a job. Somebody who trucks the food has a job. Somebody who stocks the food at the grocery store. Somebody who sells food at the farmer's market. People who grow the food. When people don't have money for food, those people don't have jobs. And in fact, for every $1 billion that we receive in California in SNAP benefits results in as many as 14,000 jobs. So when we think about cutting SNAP benefits, it's not just cutting people from the basic human need of food, but also it impacts our economy in ways that reduces access to work and employment in the food system. So how do we see California responding to some of the proposals coming out of D.C.? Well, you heard a little bit about what those proposals are, but just to kind of frame them out, we have a proposal coming from the Trump budget, and those proposals are fairly cruel and include block granting, include requiring the state of California to backfill the benefits. These would be requirements that it would be impossible for us to meet in the time frame that they would happen or propose to happen. We have the proposal that came out of the House budget and the Senate budget, both of those bills having passed through the House and through the Senate. The House vote, in fact, included 14 members of our California delegation voting in favor of these major cuts across the board, not just to SNAP, but also to school meals. Most recently, you've heard about the tax cut or tax reform proposal. This proposal would, which is now referred to as H.R. 1, House Resolution 1, would result in major significant cuts across the board to safety net programs. And it would do so for the sole purpose of being able to forfeit much of our government's resources to the wealthiest Americans. So we're responding here in California. I have to say, I'm really proud. We've taken the stage nationally, both as our leaders, Governor Brown, our pro tem, Senator De Leon, our speaker, Rendon, and the members of the legislature, but also our community, to say that these proposals do not reflect our California values. They do not reflect who we are as people and our recognition of each other as humans, as having basic needs, as being part of a same community and a holistic place. So, just after some of these proposals have come forward, and you'll hear a little bit more too about an additional proposal, right, of course, of a tax on our immigrants community, which I don't want to leave behind because it is very directly related to access to food, and other panelists will bring it up. When these proposals come out, our leaders have been responding very strongly. We commonly get responses from other places in the country with people saying thank you. These proposals, a lot of times published in English and Spanish, which is especially beautiful from our state. They're inspiring not just people here in the state to fight back, but also people in other parts of the country. This is not to say that it's enough, right? We are still a state that has more poor children than any other state in the country. We are still a state that denies elderly and disabled Californians what we know they need to survive, and food that they need to stay nourished and healthy. We are still a state that is struggling every day, to make sure that people who are poor are not punished in society and even in our criminal justice system simply because they're poor. We have a lot of work to do here, and I believe that perhaps the attacks on humanity coming from DC are making us better able to do that. I definitely see that at the Capitol, more of a desire of our collective voices across the state of California to join forces and speak to each other's struggles as our own struggle, and it makes me have goosebumps just thinking about the kind of work that's being done to bring together our collective voices and movements. And we have a lot of work to do in the Capitol to own that space. If we really are the leader of, the California being the leader of the resistance of the current Trump era, then we have to own it. We have to be that. We have to be able to talk about race, and we have to be able to talk about discrimination. We have to be able to talk about the way in which we don't value or respect women, and we're doing that. And so, I guess in closing, what I would say is that we're doing that in a collective way, very specifically about the food system. I think what you'll see is in the coming weeks and months, as California goes back into our legislative session starting in January, I think you'll see a very strong message, bipartisan, in the state of California that will say we are not a state that's going to allow hunger to grow, and that in fact we would like to end hunger. We would like to make California the bread basket of the world, to be a place where nobody experiences the indignity of hunger. I'm really excited about the year ahead, and really proud of the work that we've all done in the last year to pull ourselves up out of kind of a hard realization of what many of us know every day, which is we live in a country where people still hate one another for who they are. And so some of us have had to come to the table for the first time with that, and some other people have had to come to the table and say, see, we told you so. And I'm proud of the work we've done to get to where we are this year. And I believe that California will continue to lead in the conversation, but we can only do so if we're honest with each other and come to the collective table with that honesty.